Today, we're dissecting a high-octane geopolitical piece arguing the U.S. is basically set to acquire Greenland, using this very slang-heavy America First lens to say international law is dead.
It is definitely a vivid piece. It's aggressive. It mixes that deep internet culture with some really hard-nosed realism. It's almost like a foreign policy fever dream.
Let's jump straight in. The first major friction point for me, really, is that the piece struggles to maintain a linear narrative arc.
Oh, yeah.
It just oscillates erratically between the main topic, Greenland, and all these sort of tangential grievances about world leaders.
I absolutely felt that whiplash. You start with this really strong, almost comedic hook about the U.S. taking Greenland to store, El Presidentes and build a golden dome.
Right.
And then, just without warning, we're bouncing to European reactions. Then suddenly it's a deep dive on Mark Carney and Canadian politics.
Then Italy, then back to Greenland.
Yeah, it feels like channel surfing, but someone else is holding the remote.
Exactly.
But, isn't that part of the charm? That stream of consciousness, high-energy rant style is, it's popular online. If we impose too much structure, do we risk killing the vibe that makes this creator unique?
That's a fair concern, but I think there's a difference between high energy and just plain confusing. Let's look at that Canada section specifically.
Okay.
We're talking about nuclear missile defense, the geometry of it, and all of a sudden we pivot to a critique of Mark Carney and visa-free travel with China. For a new listener, that feels like a completely separate video just got grafted into the middle of this one.
I see what you mean. It feels like a non sequitur. You're left wondering, wait, I thought we were talking about the Arctic. Why are we suddenly on Canadian immigration policy?
Precisely. And it just dilutes the main argument. The listener has to burn all this mental energy trying to figure out the connection instead of just absorbing the point.
Right, you lose them.
So the suggestion here is to reorganize the content into thematic blocks, not these geographic hops. I'm thinking you group the arguments by their function: the strategic need, the opposition, and the catalyst.
Walk me through that. How does that change the experience for the listener?
Okay, so imagine the script starts purely with the strategic need. The source material has these really strong points just scattered all over the place. The hole in national security, the Golden Dome, the comparison to 19th century American expansionism. Consolidate all of that right at the very beginning.
So before we get to any of the jokes about Trudeau or Macron, we establish the physics of the situation first.
Yes. And just to clarify, because the piece moves fast, when the author talks about the Golden Dome, they're referring to a missile defense shield. The whole argument is that the specific geometry needed to intercept Russian missiles requires the physical landmass of Greenland.
Which is a pretty compelling hard science argument to start with.
Right. So you lay that groundwork first. We need this land for physics and for survival. Once that's established, you move to block 2, the opposition. This is where you group all the reactions from the Eurocucks, Macron, Starmer, the 4 Vikings in Greenland.
Okay, that makes sense. So instead of dealing with the UK, then some US history, then France, you group the European responses together to paint this one big picture of
collective powerlessness.
And then you bring in the catalyst. This is where that whole Canadian section actually belongs.
Okay, this is where I was a bit skeptical. How do you make the Mark Carney rant fit into the Greenland narrative?
You just reframe it. Instead of it being a standalone complaint about Canadian politics, you use the Canada courting China and visa-free travel points as the reason why the U.S. can no longer rely on its allies. The argument becomes, because Canada is aligning with China, the Golden Dome now has a backdoor. Therefore, we must physically acquire Greenland.
Oh, I see.
That completely transforms the Canadian segment from a tangent into
the smoking gun.
The smoking gun, exactly. It's no longer just Canada is annoying. It's Canada is a security liability.
Precisely. It shifts the frame from look at these bad leaders to the geopolitical board has shifted, and this is the only move left. It stops the listener from clicking off because they understand that immigration policy in Canada is now directly threatening the missile shield in the Arctic.
That is a much, much tighter narrative. It actually heightens the tension because every piece of information, even the stuff about visas, is suddenly life or death for the American strategy.
Let's move to the second lens, which is tone. This is where things get, they get tricky because the creator relies so heavily on this hyper-specific internet slang and these incendiary ad hominem attacks.
Tricky is putting it mildly. The script is just full of terms like smorgold, fake and gay, retards, and some very graphic descriptions of what world leaders are doing under the table.
And this really undermines the sophisticated realpolitik argument that's hiding just beneath the surface.
I have to push back here a little bit, though. The audience for this content, they speak this language. If we tell him to clean it up and start sounding like a CNN anchor, doesn't he lose his entire appeal? He's not writing for the Foreign Affairs Council. He's making content for the internet.
We're not asking for a CNN anchor script. We're asking for strategic use of the slang. Right now, the slang just acts as a filter. When you open with international law is fake and gay, you've signaled to a huge portion of potential listeners, people who might actually agree with the geopolitical assessment, that this isn't serious analysis. It just sounds like noise.
So it's about the order of operations?
It's about earning the right to be dismissive. I mean, the author makes a really cynical, almost academic argument that sovereignty is defined by power, not by paper. That's a valid realist theory, but he buries it under the insult.
I think I know which analogy you're going to bring up. The baseball bat?
It's the strongest rhetorical device in the entire piece. The author compares sovereignty to a kid buying a baseball bat. The kid breaks a window, and the mom takes the bat away. The kid screams, "But I bought it. It's my property." And the mom just says, "I don't care. I'm bigger than you, and I'm taking it."
It's a perfect distillation of the might makes right thesis. It just strips away all the diplomatic jargon and explains the raw power dynamic.
But where is it currently placed in the script?
It's buried in the middle, isn't it? Sandwiched between rants about libtards.
Exactly. If you front-load that analogy, you set the intellectual stage. You tell the audience, here's how the world actually works. Power overrides ownership. And once you've established that truth with a relatable analogy, then you can use the slang to mock the people who don't get it.
So you're saying prove the thesis first, then drop the punchline.
Yes, the author lists specific examples. Russia and Ukraine, Hamas and Israel, Iran. These are cited as proof that international law is selectively applied. Pivot to these examples sooner.
I can see how that flows better. So instead of just shouting fake and gay 5 times, you say, look at Ukraine, look at Gaza. The strong do what they want, the weak suffer what they must. Therefore, the concept of international law is, well, it's fake and gay.
Suddenly, the slang isn't just an insult, it's a conclusion based on evidence. It implies this concept is so ridiculous compared to reality that it doesn't even deserve a serious word.
It earns the disrespect.
There's also this massive underutilization of historical context. The script mentions that, Trump isn't the first, Truman wanted this, we've wanted Greenland since the 1800s.
That was the part that actually gave me the most pause. It anchors this America First energy in actual American history. It stops being Trump is crazy and starts being Trump as a traditional 19th century expansion.
And that is such a powerful rhetorical move. If you lead with that, this isn't new, this is Truman 2.0. You validate the entire strategy. It makes the slang feel like a modern wrapper on an old serious policy, rather than just some internet rambling.
Okay, I'm sold on the structure and the tone, but let's talk about the section on European leaders. The author just mocks them for being weak men and pushovers.
The weakness there is that the insults often come before the evidence of their weakness.
Right. I mean, calling Starmer or Macron names is easy, but the script actually has this incredible detail about the defense of Greenland, consisting of 2 dog sleds.
That detail is just devastating.
It is, and frankly, if you lead with the fact that an entire continent's strategic northern flank is defended by literally 2 dog sleds, the mockery writes itself. You don't need to force the insult. The reality is the insult.
That brings us to our third critique, the stakes. The argument is often obscured by this celebration of the entertainment value.
The I'm here for the lore factor.
The narrator keeps pausing to say, this is going to be fun, or this is absolute cinema. Grab the popcorn.
It builds rapport, though. It feels like we're all in on the joke, like we're watching a movie together. Why is that a problem?
Because cinema implies fiction. It implies the outcome doesn't really touch us. But the author is arguing about nuclear defense, Arctic security, massive economic warfare via tariffs. If the goal is to convince the listener that this must happen, treating it purely as a comedy sketch really weakens the urgency.
You mean if it's just a movie, I don't need to worry about my 401k?
Exactly. Take the tariffs. The piece mentions a 5% tariff increasing to 25% on June 1st, 2026. The author laughs about how funny it is that the U.S. will rape their economy. Now, language aside, the economic reality there is just devastation.
So the suggestion is to shift the framing from watching a movie to witnessing a historical shift.
You can still have the excitement, But you need to ground it in the reality of the consequences. Make the listener feel the weight of that 25% tariff. Transition from laughing about the entertainment to explicitly detailing what the economic pressure actually looks like for an average person.
It changes the tone from, haha, look at us bullying, to this is a ruthless, necessary lever of power. It makes the U.S. look formidable, not just chaotic.
And we see the same friction with the Canada-China alignment. The author treats the situation as incredible and funny in a dark way, but the evidence presented, visa-free travel for Chinese citizens into Canada, is framed as a backdoor invasion.
That is the terrifying part. If you're a U.S. national security hawk, that's a nightmare scenario.
So contrast the entertainment of the bumbling European reaction with the terrifying reality of the Canada-China alignment. Make the entertainment the sugarcoating for the bitter pill of the security threat. You can laugh at Macron, but you shouldn't be laughing at the threat from the north. You should be sounding the alarm.
That creates a really interesting dynamic tension. Europe is a joke, but the threat is real. That is a much more compelling narrative hook than just everything is a joke.
There's also a missed opportunity with the Italy point. The author mentions Italy refusing to send troops and calls Prime Minister Meloni based.
That felt like a throwaway line, just a quick nod to a political ally.
But think about the implications. If Italy, a major NATO power, is refusing to back the rest of Europe against the U.S., that is a massive geopolitical fracture.
It means NATO is cracking.
Correct. And if you highlight this seriously, you validate the America First strategy. You show that the liberal order the author hates so much is actually crumbling from within.
And that validation is exactly what this specific audience is craving. They want to know that their worldview is winning, not just that it's funny.
Exactly. By treating the Italian defection as a major geopolitical win, rather than just a meme, you elevate the entire commentary. You move from internet commentary to actual political analysis.
I want to circle back to the Golden Dome for a sec. We touched on it in the structure section, but the author kind of glosses over the technical aspect pretty quickly.
The megacimen of the story.
Yeah. If I'm a skeptic and I hear Golden Dome, I immediately think Star Wars fantasy project.
And that's a risk. The piece argues that the angles, mares, and bounds require Greenland. If you emphasize this technical necessity, really explain that you cannot intercept a missile from Russia without being positioned at that specific latitude, you debunk the counter-argument that this is just Trump being Trump.
It anchors the madness in math.
You can have all the El Presidente jokes you want as long as the listener walks away knowing, okay, but geometrically, the missile shield requires that landmass.
It sounds like the overarching theme of all our feedback today is really maturing the argument. We aren't trying to change the author's politics or even his personality. We're trying to take him from being a guy shouting at a webcam to a guy delivering a devastating critique of the world order.
Which brings us to the call to action. The author ends by saying, subscribe. I'm the only guy covering this correctly.
Standard YouTuber outro?
But given the intensity of the content we just discussed, the nuclear threat, the economic warfare, the cracking of NATO, that call to action feels weak.
It's anticlimactic. The world is ending. Now click the bell.
The call to action should reflect the urgency we've been building. Instead of just subscribe for more, it could be something like subscribe to watch the New World Order take shape.
Or subscribe to be on the right side of history.
Exactly. Tie the subscription to the historical shift you've just spent the whole time describing. Keep the frame consistent right to the very last second. You aren't just a YouTuber. You're a correspondent on the front lines of a culture war.
That feels much more significant.
So, to recap the main points of our critique today. First, structure. Reorganize the narrative. Stop jumping between geography. Group your points into the strategic need, the opposition, and the catalyst.
And make sure that catalyst, the Canada section, is framed as the smoking gun, not just a side rant.
Second, tone. Your realpolitik analysis is strong, but it's often drowning in the slang. Use that baseball bat analogy and the historical examples like Truman to buy the credibility that allows you to use the slang effectively.
Prove the thesis, then drop the punchline. Don't let the fake and gay comments be the first thing a new listener hears.
And finally, stakes. Move beyond this is absolute cinema. Use the specific details about the 25% tariffs and China's infiltration of Canada to highlight the urgency.
Shift the framing from watching a funny movie to witnessing a necessary historical correction.
The material has this raw, energetic power to it. With just a bit more structural discipline, it could be a devastatingly effective piece of commentary. It's close to being great, It just needs to decide if it wants to be a meme or a manifesto.
And honestly, looking at the engagement on these types of videos, if he pulls this off, if he marries that high-energy slang with that rock-solid structural argument, he is going to own that niche.
We invite the listener to submit the revised script for a follow-up critique on flow and impact. We'd love to see how these adjustments sharpen the final product.
I'm really curious to see if the baseball bat analogy lands harder when it's front and center. I have a feeling it's going to be the clip that goes viral.
Until next time, keep refining your work.
Keep challenging the narrative.